The Haunted Theater. It was a dreary winter evening when Anthony Hill, a journalist known for his knack for uncovering local legends, found himself standing in front of the Frostwood Grand Theater. The once glorious establishment had been shut down for decades, its grandeur reduced to a shadow of its former self. The massive doors, now weathered and rotting, bore the scars of time, and the grand sign above, spelling out Frostwood, hung crooked, its letters barely legible. Anthony had heard whispers of the place all his life, ghostly apparitions, flickering lights, and the eerie sound of laughter echoing through its hollow halls. For years, it was the epicenter of local folklore. Some claimed it was cursed, others swore they had seen the ghost of Margaret Belmont, a once famous actress who had vanished mysteriously during the theater's final performance in 1953, equipped with his recorder and flashlight. Anthony pushed open the heavy door, the creak echoing through the empty lobby. The air inside was stale, tinged with a metallic scent he couldn't place. Dust-covered chandeliers hung above him, and remnants of old posters lined the walls, their colors faded and edges curled. The Frostwood Theater was more than just abandoned, it felt alive. The walls seemed to breathe, and the shadows danced in the dim beam of his flashlight. Anthony took a deep breath and stepped further inside, his footsteps muffled by the thick layer of dust on the floor. Anthony's investigation began in the lobby, where he found a scrapbook lying on the counter. Its pages contained articles about the theater's heyday and its tragic end. The Frostwood Grand Theater had been the jewel of the city, attracting audiences far and wide. Margaret Belmont, the theater's leading lady, had been its star attraction. On the night of her disappearance, the play The Scarlet Curtain was being performed. In the climactic scene, Margaret had stepped behind the red velvet curtain but never emerged. The audience thought it was part of the act until the curtain dropped, revealing an empty stage. The police had scoured the theater for weeks, but Margaret was never found. The theater closed its doors shortly after, and rumors of hauntings began to circulate. Anthony flipped through the scrapbook, stopping at a photograph of Margaret. Her eyes, even in black and white, seemed to pierce through him. "What happened to you?" he murmured. A sudden noise made him jump. It was faint but distinct, a soft hum, like someone singing. He switched off his flashlight, relying on the moonlight filtering through the cracked windows. The sound seemed to come from the main auditorium. The auditorium was cavernous, its seats cloaked in cobwebs and decay. The stage, once the heart of the theater, stood silent and imposing. Anthony followed the sound, which grew louder as he approached. It was unmistakably a woman's voice, singing a haunting melody that sent chills down his spine. He reached the stage and saw a faint glow emanating from the curtains. Steeling himself, Anthony climbed onto the stage and pushed the heavy fabric aside. The glow vanished, replaced by darkness. The singing stopped, leaving an oppressive silence. But Anthony wasn't alone. "Who's there?" he called, his voice trembling. For a moment, there was no response. Then, from the far corner of the stage, a figure emerged, a woman in a shimmering, vintage gown. It was Margaret Belmont. "Margaret?" he whispered, unable to believe his eyes. The woman tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice ethereal and distant. Anthony's journalistic instincts kicked in. "What happened to you? Why did you disappear?" Margaret's face twisted in sorrow. "I was betrayed," she said. "The people I trusted the most, they silenced me, buried me beneath the stage." Anthony's heart raced. "Your body is here," Margaret nodded, tears streaming down her translucent face. "I've waited for decades for someone to listen, to uncover the truth." Determined, Anthony searched beneath the stage. With Margaret guiding him, he found a hidden trapdoor. Beneath it lay a shallow grave, the skeletal remains of a woman still clad in a tattered gown. The discovery made headlines. The Frostwood Grand Theater became the site of a massive investigation, and Margaret Belmont finally received the justice she deserved. Her killers, long dead, were identified through old records and confessions found in forgotten journals. As for Anthony, he became a local hero, his story breathing new life into the legend of Frostwood. But he never returned to the theater. Late at night, he would often hear a familiar melody in his dreams, Margaret's song, and in those dreams, she was no longer trapped but free, her spirit dancing across a stage bathed in light.